Good morning. My name is John Freeze. I'm the Director of the Center for Professional Education at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. We're happy to have you join us this morning for this webinar to discuss the Certified in Production and Inventory Management Program review course that UTC is launching in January. When UTC decided to do this program, we reached out to our partners in Knoxville, the East Tennessee APICS partnership chapter, to partner to do this program. And with us today, we have Rick Elder, who is the past president and current vice president of education of the chapter, and also the instructor for the course that we're offering. I'm going to turn it over to Rick to talk about the CPIM certification program.
Great, John. Thank you very much, and welcome everyone. Hope you'll find this little informational seminar we're doing here very valuable to you. We have a very short and sweet agenda today. We're going to talk about APICS, which is now called ASCM, the Association for Supply Chain Management, and the APICS brand, which is the courseware that's going to continue to carry. APICS has been around for a long time, since 1957, and it was actually formed in Cleveland, Ohio by a group of practitioners who wanted to network and build collaboration and benchmarking practices across the industry. It was APICS, the original acronym was the American Production and Inventory Control Society. That was dropped many years ago, and they just kept the acronym as a brand. In end of September of this past year now, 2018, they announced the organization's change to the Association for Supply Chain Management. So if you see APICS or ASCM, it is the same organization. It's just another generation of the branding. ASCM logo is shown at the bottom of the screen, so you're going to see more of this green logo going forward on everything that we do, including the participant manuals that we're going to have for this course. But APICS, the acronym or the brand, will be on all three of our certification programs. They're not going to drop that at all, because that's how we are known in the industry for our certification programs. Why CPIM? There's benefits for organizations and individuals. We're going to talk about that a little bit. The CPIM exam, we'll go through that. In description and in an application, we're only allowed to say so much about the exam from an instructor standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, but we're going to go into it deep enough so that you guys have an understanding of what the exam entails. We're going to continue on with CPIM exam preparation, like what do we do in order to prepare ourselves to take that exam. And I am CPIM myself. I have gone through this. The first time I went through it was 1986. But then in the late 90s, APICS introduced a recertification program to where you have to continually take the exams and earn points in order to stay certified. And I have done that throughout my whole career. And actually last summer, since I'm over 62, I applied for permanent certification and received it. So now I'm exempt from having to recertify. I'm certified for the rest of my life. So there's lots of different programs over your career to keep your certification active, and we'll talk a little bit of that later if we have some time. But really what we're here to talk about is about the certification review course that's coming up. Its structure, its format, activities, what's our relationship between the instructor and student engagement, etc. So that's really what we're here to talk about, and we'll get to that here. Certification exam concerns. There's lots of taking tips out there, and these exams are just like any of the other major exams you would take for any certification. But we'll go through some bullet points on the exam itself. And membership. In order to really get the most out of your APICS certification, we want you to be a member. We want you to continue to be a member throughout your career, and not only use the body of knowledge that you're learning for your own career and for your company, but also to give back into the community in terms of volunteering the way I do on the board of directors and teaching others. If you want to be an instructor, there's lots of ways you can participate once you've gained the certification. And then we'll have questions and answers at the end of this. Okay, and I've already said part of this. It was founded in '57 in Cleveland by practitioners. We actually have 3 certifications. CPIM was announced in 1973. It was the original exam, original certification. As the internal supply chain within the 4 walls of a manufacturing facility morphed into an extended supply chain, APICS designed the CSCP, Certified Supply Chain Professional, in 2006. And that was the first of the certification programs to use the new learning system that we have as far as how the courses are actually structured. And then CLTD was an acquisition in 2016. CLTD is certified in logistics, transportation, and distribution. That's a brand new to us, and it's also all in the same format. So all 3 certifications are all in the same learning style or package. We're here to talk about CPIM today. We're not going to talk about the other 2, but there's lots of data out there on the APICS website with regards to the 3 certifications and who they actually apply to based upon your role or what you are designed to have a future role in. Again, ASCM is Association for Supply Chain Management, and APICS is the brand underneath that. So when you see CPIM, like that's shown on the bottom corner of this slide, that's the acronym for the Certified in Production Inventory Management designation. And once you pass the certification exams, then you can put that after your name and continue to put that after your name on your business cards, providing you maintain that certification. So what's in it for the organizations? Organizations back in the, I'd say 10 or 15 years ago, used to pay for certifications for their individuals because they saw the value of having educated worker bees within the organization. The second bullet here about developing standard work approach across roles and functions. When you cross-train your organization on the CPM body of knowledge, everybody starts speaking the same language. They start using the same terminology, the same jargon, so to speak, from the same dictionary. And then that common language and best practices that APICS teaches then can be adapted to your internal business processes. And that really propels the organization forward. So that's really the main deliverable that we stress to organizations, is that we can get all your people on the same page, cross functions, everybody working for the same objectives, and not the siloed approach where everybody's speaking different language and showing up with different sets of reports and this chaotic management. APICS certifications are globally recognized and are the industry standard for this for the most part, and CPM has been that since 1973. So it's one of the most recognized in the industry. As far as individuals, we have 107,000 people certified. Benefits for the individual is you can increase your salary. On average, designees see a 10% increase in their take-home, and that has actually gone down. There was some studies earlier that said it was a 27% increase, and there's still some conflicting data out there. I took the most conservative, and this is actually one of the most recent. But just to know that because you're certified, you can demand more money and actually get more money in your paycheck. Improve your hiring potential by 65%. When people in industry who understand APICS, it becomes the initial screening device for members. My role in business is I'm the director of professional services for a software company. We implement ERP systems. ERP systems are built on APICS principles. When I go out looking for consultants, I'm looking for certified individuals, because I know anybody that has a certification after their name knows the fundamentals of how manufacturing control systems operate. So therefore, they already know how our ERP systems operate. And it's just a matter of now teaching them what are the individual attributes of the ERP system, of which I'm responsible for 2. Max and McCullough are the actual brand names of those systems. But I know that if as a CPIM, they can grab on either one of those application packages and understand how to make it work. You can reduce your organization's costs. You become more valuable to your organization because you add value to that organization, and you just start building identity in your career because you can get things done. And it doesn't take much to distance a certified individual from the people who are not certified. So these are all, why do we go through this? It's basically professional development. Let's talk about the exam. What's the exam like? There's 2 exams for CPIM. There's a part 1 and a part 2. And because there's 2 exams, we have 2 certification courses. So what's coming up here in the middle of January is a certification review course for CPIM part 1. Each exam, both part 1 and part 2, consists of 150 questions. Now, in those 150 questions, there's actually 130 of them you're actually tested on. And then there's 20 of them that we call a pre-test mode. These may be questions that they're introducing to see if they actually test the test question before they make it part of the actual test, if that makes sense. Because sometimes it's easy to word a question ambiguous, so people are, when you get a population of people answering the same question on the same wrong answer consistently, there may be a sign that the test question itself wasn't designed properly. And there is science involved in how APICS approaches these test questions. So the pre-test questions may be new questions coming out, just testing to make sure people can get the right answer. They may also be questions that have been thrown out but haven't actually been removed from the deck yet. So they could be retired questions that aren't going to count for anything as well. So just keep in mind, you're going to get asked 150 questions, but not every single one of them is going to be counted on the exam. And they don't tell you which ones are and which ones aren't. You just have to approach all 150 questions as if they were real questions. There's a 3.5-hour maximum time limit. And out of all the certification exams that I've taken personally, I've never come up against that. I've always finished inside of 3.5 hours. Even back in the old days when it was pen and paper or pencil and paper type of exams. The test is intended to test your understanding of the CPIM body of knowledge, BOK's body of knowledge. And that's exactly it. We'll talk more about the design of the test and how the course materials are structured, but this is a very structured system for learning the body of knowledge around CPIM. It's a multiple choice. You want to select the best of the 4 answers that are given. Some questions you'll have to complete a calculation. Things like, what's the efficiency of this work center, or what's the utilization of this person? Some forecasting math on things like mean absolute deviations. You'll have to fill out some MRP grids as far as how would MRP calculate this particular set of data. So you will have some manipulation to do on a piece of paper or with a calculator before you can enter your answer. It's not the type of thing you're just going to be able to look at the answer and say, yeah, that's the right one. And then there's some that are more conceptual, where they try to illustrate the concept, process, or procedure. So they're not as direct type questions as some of the definition questions will be. So just keep in mind that these are, it's still all multiple choice. So multiple choice exams, like going through school, were always like easier than essay questions. But I can tell you from my experience, some of the hardest exams I've ever taken have been CPIM certification exams, even though they are multiple choice. The exams are administered by Pearson VUE test centers, and there's actually 5 test centers in the Chattanooga area, 2 actually in Chattanooga, 1 in Cleveland, and 1 in Rock Spring, Georgia, and 1 in Dalton, Georgia. So depending on where you live around Chattanooga, you can get to a test center easily. And then they're all computer-based exams. So you basically sign up with the test center, show up to take your exam. They sit you down at a computer, turn the exam on, You go through and answer your 150 questions. And when you sign out of that exam, it gives you the score right there and lets you know if you've passed it or failed it. Each exam has diagnostics. This is how the CPIM Part 1 exam is laid out. There's 4 categories. The first is business-wide concepts. And then you can see where these are all equally 25%. There's a section on demand management, which is the incoming sales orders and forecasts into your plant. There's the transformation of that demand into supply, which is all about the priority system inside of the manufacturing control system and also capacity. And then there's a 4th part on supply questions in general. There's a scaled scoring, and I'm not an expert on how 150 questions or 130 usable questions translate into this, but basically you need to have at least a score of 300. Anything higher than 300 means you've passed. But you can see, actually that might be a typo on there. I'm going to have to check that. It says 320 and greater is a fellow level. So if you get a high score, the higher that you get into the 300s, there's a certain level that gives you kind of like a with distinctions. And I'll tell you the truth, I'm not positive that's the 350 or 320, but one of those 2 numbers is probably wrong, and I'll get that corrected. I apologize for that. So just going into it, I think everybody's going to shoot for 300, but if you're really good at this subject matter and you're really good at taking exams, it is possible to get a fellow level. And originally, the fellow level of CPIM was a CFPIM. I think nowadays it's just a CPIM with an asterisk next to it, designated that you're at that higher level. And there's several fellows running out there in industry still. But these are the really, really sharp people. In all the exams that I've taken over my career, I think one of them hit the fellow level. And I say all the exams, because I've been around so long, the CPIM body of knowledge has been reformatted several times. So that I've actually taken the same exams multiple times. And even doing the same body of knowledge area multiple times, I have never hit fellow other than one time in my career. So it's tough to get to that level, but just know that it's there. Okay, so how do you become certified? The bottom line criteria is you schedule a test and you go take it and you pass it. Okay, so that's the simple answer. All you have to do is pass the test. You pass CPIM Part 1, and that's fine. You go and pass CPIM Part 2. They give you your CPIM designation and a little pin to put on your lapel. So that's the easy road. Now, how do you get to where you can pass the exam? And that's what we have to talk about here. So there's several ways of doing this. You can self-study, which means you purchase the materials and you do everything yourself, sitting at your kitchen table or wherever you sit these days when you're studying. You can join study groups, meaning if there's a group of people within your organization and all want to go through it together, you can form a group and kind of like put yourself through it as a group. Or you can take certification review courses, which is what we're offering. Those certifications courses can be local, like we're offering through the University of Chattanooga. It's great. There's also an online version that you can take from a Fox Valley Technical Institute. From an online perspective, Fox Valley is the only institution that's authorized to teach the official APICS courseware. And the most important part of all this is a document called an Exam Content Manual, or ECM. The ECMs are published to outline the body of knowledge for that area of the certification, and the people who write the test questions are only allowed to use the Exam Content Manual as a source of questions. So if it's not in the Exam Content Manual, it is not on the exam. So that takes the entire spectrum of what's going on in industry inside of this term supply chain and breaks it down to a finite number of concepts, terminology, mathematical formulas. So it's not like the sky is the limit here. There's a lot of stuff out there in the industry right now on the Internet of Things and big data. If you look at the exam content manual and the Internet of Things is not listed in the exam content manual, it will not be on the exam. Okay, so just know that when you're going to be serious about studying this body of knowledge, the first document you want is the exam content manual. And that goes for all of APICS certifications, not just CPIM. For today, we're concerned about the CPIM. And the exam content manual will give you everything for CPIM Part 1 and Part 2. There's not separate ones for the tests. It's one content manual for the entire certification. So the certification review course. We claim that APICS is an educational society, and we are. We like to teach people concepts, just like UT operations management team wants to teach you operational concepts. But our business is really about certification, and we're going to be really concentrating on the certification and not so much the education of it. Now, what that means is that courses are going to be structured to where we are reviewing concepts, not teaching it to you for the first time. Okay. Our purpose is to make sure that you meet a minimum set of requirements related to this body of knowledge. In other words, we have to review the concepts in the exam content manual with you so that you can then take the exam and look at the diagnostics of how well you're doing in regards to that exam. And when you get your test scores, it will tell you how you scored in each one of those 4 diagnostics. So if you failed the first time, in fact, you could go take the test today, and it would tell you what you need to study and what you don't need to study if you want to, go about it that way. It may be one or two of those 4 areas that you already know and actually can pass with minimum competence. The other 2 areas you need to work on. Well, if you knew that going in, I think your study approach would be a lot different. Okay. So we're trying to get you certified, and we want you to prepare for the exam all the way up to the point where we're not going to teach you the exam. Okay. The purpose of the review course is to go through those concepts so you help you prepare for the exam. And again, like I said a few minutes ago, if you look at some of the slides in the material that are in the course, we could probably spend an hour on many of the topics, when in fact a whole section of topics is actually allocated to be an hour. So it's going to be a very quick pace. These are the concepts as far as the terminology and the math and whatnot, the models that are being used, so that you can then be introduced to that body of knowledge. But you're going to require further study, further reading, further working of some math problems and whatnot on your own outside of the class. So it's not the kind of situation, I don't think, where you can just show up for the class without any concept at all about supply chain and walk out of there ready to take the exam. You're going to have to put additional hours of study in. The certification review course itself is been prepared by an organization called Holmes Organization. They take our teams as far as the whole CPIM council, and they put the course together for us. So there's reading materials. There's a picture there on the left of the CPIM participant guide. You will receive one of those with the course, and pretty much it has all the content and the narratives that I have in my instructor's guide, that you can follow along and take notes in the margins and highlight with a marker and mark it up. That is your workbook. That book is about 1.25 inches thick. You can't tell that by that picture, but it's for CPM Part 1, it's about 1.25 inches thick. There's online materials. When you pay for this course, you'll be enrolled into an online training program through Holmes for 1 year. So when we get you signed up, you'll have actually 12 months from that date to before you expire. And then there's an optional student slides book that shows the PowerPoint that the instructor will use during the class, and so you'll have those to review if you wanted them as well. I'll have to check with John to see if we've included that in our materials or not. But the asterisk there is it's optional for instructors-led classes only, and it's not a mandatory type thing. It's kind of a nice to have. So just be aware that that's there. So, I mean, to be successful in the certification exam, you need to understand the subject matter. And again, all exam questions are based upon the current exam content manual. When you're sitting at the exam, you want to read the directions very carefully. So make sure you understand what the exam is instructing you to do. Sometimes they'll give you a paragraph to read about a situation, and then there'll be several questions after that that refer to that situation only and not to any other part of the exam. So make sure you're going through the exam and you're understanding what you need to do. If it's a table, graph, or situation, read the question and then study the data before you try to make your guess or put your answer on the exam. So make sure you take the time to get yourself oriented to what the question's asking. There's only one correct answer for all these. There's no trick questions. There's science involved in writing the exam, and I won't go into all that science, but basically when the exam writers are writing the questions, they write out the question and the answer all in kind of one process, and then they backfill the other three answers that may be similar concepts as far as like utilization and efficiency are two capacity measures. They may give you a utilization formula on a efficiency question just to see if you understand the difference between the two, and they're very similar formulas. So they'll try to confuse you, but there's nothing really trick in that. There is one correct answer for every question. You can go through the exam in order. In fact, we recommend you just start with question 1, go all the way through to question 150. If there's a question that you look at and you say, oh my goodness, I didn't read anything about that, or I don't remember that, just skip it. Just go on and get through the exam, get as many of the questions answered the first time through as you can, and then you can always come back to the ones you skipped later and address them. Sometimes you'll have a question you'll look at the first time through, and you'll say, whoa, well, I don't have a clue what they're asking there. But then after you answer 3 more questions, later in the exam, it will refresh your memory. Like, oh, I think I understand what that question was asking now. And you can go back and review it at a later point. So skip them and then come back later. It's okay to guess at the questions. There's no penalty for wrong answers. It's not like the graduate management entrance exams or the exams that were penalizing you for guessing. It's okay to guess. So at the end of your time, if you're saying, well, I still have 5 questions, I don't know what they are, chances are on a multiple choice you can narrow it down to 1 or 2 answers. Narrow it down and make a guess. That's fine, but answer all of them. Don't skip any of them. If you skip them, they're going to be wrong. So you might as well guess and be wrong on a guess, or take the chance of being right. Okay, so the first exam is going to be an experience for you, but it's actually not a bad approach. The whole online testing works very well. Okay, so now we fast forward through. This is the course now, and we're certified. There's this issue called certification maintenance, and I mentioned it earlier. Your CPIM is going to be good for 5 years. Okay, and during those 5 years, you need to earn 75 development points, and you can do that in a number of ways. You can always go back and retake the examination because you can get so many points just by continually taking the same exam. Now, it's not the same exam. When I say the same exam, it's going to be CPIM Part 1 certification exam, but if you took that in March of 2019 and took it again in March of 2020, it's not going to be the same questions because those questions are constantly changing. New topics like the Internet of Things are constantly being worked into the courseware. Excuse me, I had a cough there for a second. So even though it sounds like the same exam, just know that it's going to constantly evolve with how industry is evolving. Okay. You can go to conferences. You get so many hours of credit by attending an international conference. And APICS has an international conference once a year, every year. And you can just becoming a member of the organization, you can get points. You can get points through service, like writing a book or an article. And the articles have to be published in a periodical, but APICS has their own periodical where they often publish their own internal people. And then there's books like Supply Chain Management Review and whatnot that if your paper was good enough, you could submit it to those types of things. But basically, any supply chain materials management, operations management, quality management source out there that you can submit an article and get published will get you a lot of points. There's a mentorship program where you can mentor other people, mostly college students. APICS has student chapters. They're always looking for mentors for students because APICS sees as an organization level getting close to those students early on in their careers and then helping them, through their college years and into transition into being professional members and workers. They are more inclined to keep APICS in their career plans. And then there's local volunteers. Like I mentioned, I'm on the board of directors. This is the second chapter I've been involved with. Actually the third technically, but I'm from the Philadelphia area originally, and I went through the chairs on the Philadelphia chapter, and then moved to Tennessee and ended up going through the chairs in the Knoxville chapter. So there's lots of opportunities to serve, and I'll tell you, I learned a lot about how management works and how teams work just by being on the APICS board. And APICS offers their team members a different level of education. Most of it's related to chapter development, but you'll learn how does social media work and marketing campaigns and pricing strategies. There's lots of things you can pick up, but in the operation of the APICS chapter that you can take back to your work and use as tools in your own career, in your own organization. And I always, that was free just by participating because it's a volunteer organization. You don't get paid for it, but they give back in lots of things that you continually use in your career. Okay, so you need to be a membership. You don't need to be a member to go through certification. You can gain the certification without a membership. You're going to pay more because there's usually discounts for members and non-members. But we encourage you to, when you make the commitment to become certified, make the commitment to become an APICS member and stay the course throughout your career. Because it's not a one and done. As industry changes, you do need to keep up to date through all the various ways that certification maintenance gives us points to her. Okay, so number one, as an APICS member, you're going to get reduced prices. That's going to save you money. Your certification assumes that you're going to be a member. So if you drop your membership, say you were a member long enough to become certified, and 2 years down the road, you don't feel like paying your dues, you just want to go on your own way. As soon as that drops on APICS Corporate, they take your name off the website, and essentially there's no verification from any prospective employer that you were ever certified. So the credentials, if you put CPIM on your resume, there's a website that any organization can go to and look up your name and actually see if you were certified or not. So there's a kind of a threat there that, if you say you're certified and they can't verify that they're going to ask you for, show me the proof that you are certified, and you will get a certificate, a paper certificate that is that proof. But we want you to make the commitment. The reason why they tied certification to membership is for that very reason, and it's that we want committed members in our organization. We want people to learn and use that body of knowledge and then contribute back in however way that works in your career. For professionals, there's two levels, and I say professionals, that's different than students, different than academics, different from retired people. So professionals is a course or a group of people. And there's core and plus. And the core is this basic membership. It allows you to have a membership number and get some discounts, but the plus level gives you a lot more. And I'm not going to go into all these different levels because it's too much for what we're trying to accomplish here. But just know that there's student levels. I myself am a plus member, and because I want to receive all the benefits that comes at that level of certification. But that's an individual choice. There are local chapters. There's an APICS chapter in Chattanooga. There's one in Atlanta. There's one in Northeast Alabama. There's one in Nashville. There's one on the plateau, like Crossville area of Tennessee. We're in Knoxville. There's another one up in the Bristol, Kingsport area. So there's APICS chapters pretty much everywhere. And we don't have regions. There's not a distinct territory. So that's part of the reason why me being from Knoxville can work with the University of Tennessee in Chattanooga, because we're here to deliver services. And if Chattanooga is not able to do that, and under the terms that University of Tennessee is looking for, then they can reach out to us and we can service them, providing we can make it work from a business perspective, which we've got that worked out. So pick a chapter that makes sense, either closer to where you live at home or closer to where you work. I don't know how many of people are commuting, across chapter boundaries, so to speak, but just choose one that works for you. And with that, we can open to questions and answers. Before we do, though, I want to just review this real quick before we stop the recording. CPM Part 1 is scheduled to start on Saturday the 19th, and we're going to meet for 3 Saturdays every other Saturday from 9 to 4 p.m. And you can see the fees there. And there's an early bird fee if you run and register early. CPM Part 2 is tentatively scheduled now for March 2nd through May 11th, and it's the same type of structure. Because the CPM Part 2 is longer than CPM Part 1, the fees are going to be higher. But between the two there, you can see what your investment will be if you want to run through both certification review courses and help prepare for the examination. Okay, so with that, I'll back up. John, you can stop the recording and we'll take some questions and answers.